Welcome to the Underground Society podcast, man. How did you first get introduced to like influencing and like what you do now?
I used to want to be a filmmaker. So I actually went to college for media. I studied like what's it called? Cinematography, and like I also studied just cinema production in general. And so I wanted to direct. That was like my long-term goal. And then when I graduated college, I had a meeting with this executive producer from William Morris Endeavor, which I had met through like a family friend. Mm-hmm. And we talked, and I was asking for tips on how to break into the industry. He basically told me, he was like, yeah, well, there are a lot of people these days who they grow a following on social media, and then they have a much better chance of breaking into the industry that way because they already have an audience of people. So he basically hinted, he was just like, yeah, do you have any friends that are like that? And I actually did. I had a friend from high school who had just become YouTube famous, maybe like a year or two before. And I had talked to him a few times too over social media just to like ask how he was doing and everything. Great guy. He goes by Berlizzi. If anyone watching this is familiar, but so I hit up Berlin, and I like asked him, I was just like, hey man, like, do you need any help with like any of the videos you're coming out with? And he was like, yeah, like I'll have to check, but I'll let you know, basically. And then I think like right after that, I did this film competition with one of my friends from college that I studied film with. And we did a film competition for aperture lights, and it was like just to win like it was to win a bunch of equipment. And we didn't win anything, but like we made these like 2-minute short films. And like the challenge was like to use like music. It was to use score, like the music background, to like guide your narrative. Right. And so we made these short films, and we made them in like a week or a couple weeks time. And after that, after we did that, I was kind of like, I feel like I can do this. Like I could do this like every week. I could like make a video every week. I could script something like really silly or something like small, and I could like scrap together a couple people to help me, and I could do it. And that's literally what I did. And then it's so funny because I was supposed to like help Berlin like with his videos, but what ended up happening was I decided, I'm like, I could just do this myself. So I ended up asking Berlin if he wanted to be in one of my videos that I made. And he was just like, yeah, dude, sure. Yeah, he's like, yeah, sure, man. And then so he ended up being in that video. And then from that point on, I think this was like end of 2017 going into 2018. Or was it 2018? Yeah, it was 2018. And like every week for like the next 6-7 months, I made a YouTube video, like a 2 to 5 minute scripted YouTube video every week for the next 7 months. And I don't know how I did that, to be honest. But that was about where I started like making content. And it wasn't rave stuff either. It was just like regular standard
There's like normal
comedy,
like skits and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like I used to watch a lot of YouTube, so I used to like watch Ryan Higa, like Jimmy Tatro, Cody Ko, like all those guys, right? So like I kind of tried to like make content similar to them, and then I think it was like around the 7-8 month mark, I found these other guys on Instagram that were making like kind of the same thing, but like 1 minute sketches, and they would make like compilation sketches and stuff, and I thought they were really funny. Their names are Stevie Emerson and Matt Jostin.
Oh yeah, I love
and
Stevie.
So, yeah. So Stevie, I got. You should tune in. I don't know if you saw the first episode of our podcast, but I talk about that a little bit.
Yep.
My overthinking with Stevie, but yeah. So, anyways,
go listen to his podcast if you guys haven't. We'll plug it at the end of the episode. But I love your show. I've been becoming a huge fan in the last couple of weeks. So
thanks, man. Appreciate it. But yeah, so I started making like 1 minute skits, and then I think end of 2018, I met my cousin-in-law, which sounds really funny when I say it like that. But for anyone that's familiar with Smosh, my cousin-in-law Noah Grossman, he's like one of the main actors for Smosh. And so his oldest brother married my cousin, and then I met him at the wedding. And a bunch of my cousins were like, Devin, like, you should go talk to Noah. Like, you know, Noah's like a big internet person. And they all knew that I like was making videos and stuff, or I was trying to like make content. And so I went up to him and we had a great conversation. And then he was like, yeah, dude, like, let's make some videos sometime. And then so we made a couple of videos one weekend, and then we were just like, you want to just do this every weekend? So then Noah started making videos with us every weekend, and it just became a routine thing. It was kind of like it was like our way of like hanging out, you know. So we did that like all of 2019. It was like me, Noah's friend, one of my good friends, Hamada, and like a couple other people, and we did that. And so I think rewind a little bit, like mid 2018, when I started to like kind of get the idea to make like compilation videos and stuff, I actually made I made a compilation video on Coachella. It was like things that people say after Coachella or something like that. I was directly inspired by Stevie.
Yeah, Stevie did that one with the dubstep.
Yeah, he did.
Skit.
He did that. Yeah. But before that, he did the Jewel video, which is like what blew him up. Originally, he did a Jewel video, like things that guys who smoke jewels say, like compilation, and that's what inspired me to make. I made the Coachella video, and that video, it was a compilation sketch. That video was like my first video to hit like 10,000 views on a platform. It was on Facebook.
That's so big, funny.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh shit, like 10,000 views, that's crazy, you know? And then, so then I was like, okay, like maybe there's a market for this. So then I decided, I was like, EDC was coming up, and I'm like, you know, I'm going to do one on EDC. I've never been to EDC, but I've been to enough raves. I've been to enough raves to like know like the inside ins and outs. Yeah. At the time, like that was my thought. I mean, I've been to EDC now, and I'm like, okay, you know, I was a little off. Like, you know, could have been more specific about certain things. But so I made Everyone After EDC with a couple of my friends in San Diego. That one wasn't even with Noah. It was literally just with like whoever. I was visiting my friends in San Diego that weekend, and I was like, I need to make a video this weekend. And I'm like, let me just make the EDC one. So I made it with a couple of my like friends from college. And that one blew up. That one got like 120K in like a couple weeks or something on Facebook.
Yeah, that's way bigger.
Time, that was crazy. I was like blown away. And it was so funny because like even some of my friends in that video were getting like recognized in San Diego. They were like, hey, weren't you just like in a video? Like,
that's wild.
So like I was, so that's kind of like where the rave content started.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, like, you know, there's a market for this. So I think August 2018, I made one for Hard Summer. It was like Everyone Before Hard Summer. That one did really well. That one got like 100K, I think. And then I did one for Nocturnal, and that one got like 60, 70K. So I would like kind of intermix them like with my other content.
When did the artist stuff? Because you started like, so like you just put out one
DJ
with like
fans.
Centronics fans or
yeah.
When did that stuff start?
That didn't start until 2020 actually.
Okay.
Because so it's funny because like everyone asks about me and Nan's relationship. I didn't meet Nan until probably the end of 2018. Okay. End of 2018 going into 2019. And then what happened was I kind of took a break from making the rave compilations for a little while, and then I made a Coachella video in 2019. And I had just met Nan like maybe a month before. And he like had tried to recruit me for like this social media. They were like a social media growth company. I think he got swindled into the company, and he ended up working for them for a little while. And we talk about it on our podcast. He says he hates it, but and so so I ended up asking
MLMs,
him,
man.
I know, dude, for real. So I ended up asking him. I asked him if he wanted to be in the video. Him and the guy who introduced us, and so they ended up coming out to Santa Monica, and we shot the video. And then, honestly, I didn't talk to Nand for a while after that, or like I would talk to him here and there, but not really, you know? And then, end of 2018, not end of 2018, end of 2019. Cause Noah and I were still making videos all throughout 2019. And then towards the end of 2019, I think around September, October is when I decided I was like, you know, I kind of want to lean more towards doing rave content. I had made another Everyone After EDC video that year, and I posted it on Instagram. and some of like the bigger EDM pages posted it, and it did pretty well. So I was like, I honestly enjoy making this content more, and I felt like no one was really making content in this space yet. This is before
that we do have like your group of people now, and then like some of like the other podcasts and stuff in our niche, but like I feel like compared to other markets, like the EDM like creator space is still pretty small.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. And like at that time, it was like almost non-existent. I think the only people that were making like content in the space were like Emma Capotes and like and like Stevie would occasionally make like videos that were like EDM related, but
around,
his focus wasn't EDM, EDM and raving.
Normal comedy.
So exactly right. So so I was like, since no one's really doing this, I'm like, I kind of want to be like one of the first to start doing it.
And if it was working, freaking lean in, man.
Exactly right. And like I would get, it's so funny because like in the beginning, like especially when you're like someone that like no one's ever seen before, and then all of a sudden your video is like viral or whatever, like you get a lot of shit for it, Like I got a lot of comments. I remember on that EDC video, I got a lot of like cringe comments, and I was like, that was like the first time I really dealt with like real online hate, and I was just like, you just kind of like stop reading the comments after a while. But
I've heard. I don't know if you watched like Impulsive or anything with Logan Paul and Mike Maylak and those guys.
A few times, yeah.
Mike was I was just listening to their show, their newest episode today on their podcast, and he was saying, he was like, in the beginning, like it's so hard. I'd be out for 3-4 days with some of the things that these people were saying to me, and now it's it's almost required as a creator or like being in the online space. Like you have to develop thick skin. Like it doesn't even phase him now because he's been around it so long. Yeah.
Yeah, you really do. And honestly, a lot of those people, like, I feel bad for them half the time just because, like, there's nothing there, like, nothing would ever warrant me to want to, like, go out of my way unless something was, like, so offensive to, like, where it's actually, like, harming people. Like, I would never want to go out of my way to, like, say that I don't like something. So sometimes it was hard. In the beginning, it was hard for me to understand that, but now I'm like, okay, I think like some of these people just like aren't really happy with
and they're
their
taking
lives.
Time out of their day to like, why even waste that time? Like, no.
Exactly. Yeah. What cracks me up is when the people are like, I want my like 30 seconds back, or like they're like, I want my like 2 minutes back. It's like, bro, you're probably doing like a bunch of other things that's like way longer. That is way more of a waste of time. So
that's very true.
So to your original question about the DJ Fan series. So Nand and I came up with the idea for that series at the end of 2019. One of our friends, we were so Nand actually became part of our like weekend shooting crew, to where we were making like skits every weekend. Again, it wasn't like all raving yet. It was like kind of half and half at this point. I was like leaning a little more towards doing rave content, but I was still also making like regular comedy videos, just trying that out. Okay. And so Nand, we were in the car one time, and our friend Simone, she like was talking to us. She was like, "Yeah, you guys are like the rave boys," like because Nand and I were both into raving, and like we both had that in common. We were the only ones in our group that would meet every weekend that had that in common, So like I wouldn't be able to talk about anything EDM with anyone else. Like Noah's not really into that scene, and no one else that would make videos with us were either. So so we were kind of thinking, and then I think around that time, Trevor Wallace had released a video that was like making fun of Drake fans, and then that was also around the time Stevie released the video about them making fun of dubstep fans. So I watched those, and I was just like telling Nan, I'm like, what if we did this like for artists, like EDM artists? Because like I feel like EDM artists don't get enough love, like especially compared
to like top 40 people, definitely not. Like
exactly,
unless you're in this scene, that's really the only time you hear about like the news and stuff of everything going on.
Exactly. So I was like, I feel like this has a lot of potential because I feel like these artists would like that. Like they would. I mean, it's roasting their fans and kind of them also, but like it's like friendly roast,
It's just
it's
a joke,
it's all good fun, right? So we were like, let's do it. So Nand, I think at the time Nand was really into Millenniums, so we were like, Millenniums like getting really popular, so like let's do one on Millenniums fans.
So you're the reason why his fan base became a meme.
Am I? I have no idea, to be honest, that's pretty
everyone
funny
always
if it
jokes about
is.
like the Asian trains at Millennium shows.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
we were just making fun of like the sad boy, like the
Yeah.
sad boy audience. That was also when the meme about slowly, seductively, and on beat, like that. I don't know if you're familiar with that meme.
I saw
That was
that.
the time. That was at the time that one came apparent. Yeah.
Yep.
And then when we did the video, Millennium actually reposted it on his Twitter. He retweeted it, or he like replied to it or something. And then because of that, it got a lot of traction on Twitter. Yeah, so then that kind of sparked that series, and we were like, hey, this is kind of a good idea. And
Yeah.
then all of 2020, that's around the time, that's when I joined Steezy. That's when I started working for Steezy. So I actually
what is that for people who don't know?
Steezy is they're a dance like startup, and
Okay.
their thing is like online dance classes. And I had a great time working there. It's very cliquey, but I had a good time working there. Made some good friends, made some not as good friends, but yeah, I don't regret my time there. And but while I was working there, it was really hard for me to make content because it was a full-time job. So I really like a lot of my, and I was running their YouTube channel, so a lot of my creative juices were going towards managing the YouTube channel, coming up with ideas for stuff for them. So I kind of took like a break of sorts from making content in 2020. I was still making content, but it was like once every like month or like once every couple months. But that is around the time. It was early 2021 was kind of when we got the DJ Fans series back up and running. We started like in January. We made the Excision DJ Fans, which is one of my favorites, by the way. If you've ever seen it, yeah.
That's the one I haven't seen. I didn't even know you did the Excision one.
Oh, really? That's one of my favorite
I need to go watch
ones.
that.
Yeah, dude. I honestly like that is hands down probably my favorite next to Rez.
Nice.
But yeah, so we did that one, and that one did.
Quick note on all these artist series too. A lot of the artists that you've done this for have actually noticed and have actually commented and engaged with your content as well, right?
Yes. It's been about half.
Okay.
Millennium saw his, and then Zed saw his. Let's see, Rez saw hers. Obviously, Subtronics recently saw his.
Yeah.
Deadmau5 saw his.
Yo, that's huge.
Yeah. He actually messaged me and he was like, "Hey, man, really funny video." And I'm like, "That's a huge compliment coming from
Deadmau5, yeah,
who is like really dry and like really harsh, you know?"
Yeah.
So, and even his manager reached out to me too and was like, "Hey, that's a really, really funny video." The one we did on Seven Lions didn't respond, but Ophelia responded, and that's actually how, because I work with them, so that's actually how I like got in contact with them originally. So, yeah. So I'm sure he probably has seen it. Yeah. No, they're cool. They're nice people.
Going back to when you first started, and I know you hang out with a lot of fitness people now, and I know that your persona is kind of known as like the gym Rave Pro. Did you have any inspiration, or did you have any influence from like the people within the fitness space to create content, or was it mainly all like comedy stuff?
Actually, not particularly. Like I think I lean towards gym stuff just because the gym is like a pretty big part of my life.
Yeah.
So because of that, like it's more natural to kind of include that. But to be honest, like I would say the only person that like did anything remotely gym was like Jimmy Tatro. And Dom Mazzetti, Bro Science.
Oh yeah.
Or Mike Tornabene.
Yep.
Yeah. He's a big inspiration too. He's super funny. I actually met him like a couple months ago at Gold in Venice. So funny. He's like so much more calm and chill in person. Obviously, he's playing a character. But yeah,
I know him and Bradley Martin, I think, are pretty good friends too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's really funny because to be honest, I didn't really watch anyone in that space except for like Steve Cook back in 2019, 2018. I know, dude.
Yeah.
Dude, like that. And I was just like following him because like I liked his workouts and like, but like then I think more recently I started like diversifying a little bit. And I think it was like in mid 2021 is when I found my good friend Niall. And I didn't meet Niall until like November of 2021, but I was following Niall's workouts on Instagram from like June all the way. I still follow them now. So yeah, and then I met Niall in November. It was kind of like it was a weird interaction just because of like the context of the like scenario and everything. But then in March, my friend Larry reintroduced me again, and then we like actually raved together, and then now we're good friends. So
Dude, it's crazy how much of I think it's, I mean, he even dated back all the way to like Z's, how much of a crossover there is between EDM and like the
oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah, no, it's insane. I'm really happy about it though, because I feel like that's one of those things where like it's because like the rave community is all about like promoting positivity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like especially with like mental positivity, and I think the gym is one of those things that also promotes mental positivity.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I think it's a nice thing, like it's a nice little like subcategory in the rave niche that isn't too in your face to people of like, hey, go get in shape, but it's like, hey, like, you know, going to the gym and staying fit and staying healthy, both physically and mentally, also goes hand in hand with, you know, going to raves and supporting each other, you know, and being positive with each other. So
I think it helps with just people being like healthy too. Like with like some of the drug use stuff, and like I think it's like
100%.
It helps balance that scale a lot too.
Yes, I 1000% agree. To answer also your earlier question about the Rave Pro character, I think.
So how do you feel about that being your character? Like, what's kind of like the development of that?
I think it kind of like matches like my like personality a little bit. Yeah. Just like I was in a frat in college, and like I like I go to the gym and like I rave. I mean, I don't obviously the Rave Pro character is personified, but I don't know. It just like it was just the easiest character for me to do. I feel like broy character has always been really funny to me. So I've always kind of like leaned more towards that.
You just leaned into that because it was working, obviously, right?
I did lean into it because it was working, but I also leaned into it because I liked making that more. And I felt like I had more experience to back up making jokes for that. Which is really funny, by the way, because like you can never win. Like with especially like when it comes to like the online hate and stuff, like a lot of people, everyone's always like, oh, well, like the raves weren't like this back in my day, or like you don't know anything about raving.
That's
right?
a lie and a half.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm just making videos based off of my experience. That's all things have ever been for me. So, but
which is dope because it's genuine and people can actually relate to that. Like, I think that's what makes a great content creator is relatability.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's authentic to me, you know.
Yep.
And so, like for me to make anything outside of that would not be authentic. And so, I think when I was making like just regular like standard comedy stuff before, like it just, I don't know. It just like a lot of times I would make videos based off of like little scenarios that have like happened to me here and there, but I just never felt like that was it, you know?
Do you see a long term? Do you see a long term? Like, do you see yourself doing this type of content, like very long term, like in the next 20, 30 years? Because obviously you're probably going to want to do content creation for you're going to want to do that as your long-time career. But do you see yourself changing kind of content that you're making, or how do you see the kind of the trajectory of that?
Yeah, I do. I do think that like my content will definitely change over time. I would like to. I actually have a lot of like really cool, or at least they're cool to me. But I have a lot of really cool ideas.
That's what's important.
For my YouTube channel, I have a lot of like really cool ideas, but I want to wait until my YouTube channel has like a little more traction on it, like you know, more people, some more eyes, because I want to do like I don't know. I just I feel like there's a lot that isn't being done in the community that I want to do. And so I definitely can see myself doing more of like a Cody Co style channel for YouTube. I still want to make skits, and I still want to make like produced videos that like are scripted and everything. Because honestly, that's just one of my passions. Like I love doing that. Like for example, the My Raver Academia video that we made. I would love to do more of those. I just want to do them when I know like, you know, a lot of people are going to see them, you know?
Yeah. But talk a little bit about that, because I know that was kind of a frustration for you making that. Was like kind of like you put all this time and energy into it and it just didn't kind of the way that you were hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it's got a lot of potential to
Yeah,
do well. I just think that like I think there are a lot of different topics on this because for one, I think the EDM community on YouTube is not very big yet, and
no,
so
definitely not.
because of that, it's harder to have a flourishing channel on YouTube as an EDM creator because not everyone is really on YouTube. That's kind of like why I'm very interested to see how our podcast does because our
Yeah,
podcast does live on YouTube, but yeah, it was really frustrating just because we put a lot of time, we put a lot of money like into making that video and we had really high hopes for it. But at the same time, like it was it was always like because we thought it was fun and we
yeah,
thought it was the idea was funny and like we just liked the idea of like anime and raving crossover. You're seeing a lot more of it now these
yeah,
days.
yep.
So it's like we were like, you know what, let's just try it and see how it does. And yeah, I mean, honestly, like I learned a lot from it, and I definitely it's not the end of that series. Like we'll definitely make more
Yeah.
in the future.
There's kind of two routes that you can go with creating content. One is like I'm creating things for virality for it to go viral, and then you also
Yeah,
have content that you make just like for your fans. Do you think that
yeah.
there was a struggle there with making content like the Raver Academia? Do you think that was
Mhm.
more centered towards like your already established fan base, or do you think something like that you could actually make it into like a viral type of content?
I think it was a little more like for our fan base, and honestly
Okay.
for us, like just because like I really love My Hero Academia as a show,
Hmm.
and it's there's no guarantee that like my everyone in my audience is gonna know about
Right.
my Hero Academia. And if you think about it this way, like or at least from like an analytics perspective, like you might think that like oh people who watch My Hero Academia might like this, but the thing is it's like it's rave related, so they're not going to get the rave jokes. So it's gonna I don't know like the
And vice
crossover
versa
has to make sense,
with
and vice versa.
with
Exactly.
the ravers might not
You got
understand what that
ravers,
is. Yeah, yeah, yep.
right? They're watching this. They're like, "Yo, this is like edited really cool," but I have no idea like where
Yeah. I
you
watched
know.
it, and that's kind of the reaction I had because I've never seen
Oh,
that show.
really?
So that's yeah, I was like, "This is cool. Like, I appreciate the content, but I really
Yeah.
don't understand it."
Yeah. So I think there's a lot to be said. Like the big lesson is kind of just like uh, I think with something like that, if as long as we're enjoying it, it's okay.
Hmm.
But like if we're gonna, I think for next time, it's like if we're gonna put a lot more effort and money and stuff into it, I think we definitely should be a little more selective about like the topic and like what it is. Like I know we really want to do an Attack on Titan rave crossover, like
Yeah,
which I
yeah.
think would do a lot better just because Attack on
That
Titan is
yes,
a lot more mainstream. But
yep,
again, I wanna be sure that like we can comfortably afford to do that. And know that at least we're gonna get more than just a couple thousand views, for
yeah.
it. So
What's like the cost and stuff going into like a project like that?
I want to say a little over 2 grand
Oh wow.
for that. Yeah,
What's some of the
because
expenses for? That's the part I don't like for like the podcast. Like I just talk to someone and I put out the content and
yeah.
create all the content. It's all free.
Mm.
But what like with making a video like that? What are some of your costs?
Well, the editing costs the most,
Okay.
for sure, and that's also like we got a discount because we got it. It was edited by one of my homies. Shout out to my homie Anthony, who
Okay.
I used to work with at Steezy, and
Yeah.
super talented editor. And so I hit him up to edit the video. And the thing is like he's still working at Steezy, so he has to like. The thing is it has to be the cost to edit the video has to be enough to like for him to spare time on his free
Right.
time to edit the video, right? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of how like most editors generally work.
Yeah, they kind of set a
Is like
price for themselves in general, and then
yeah,
even when they
because if he
outsource their own stuff, yeah,
exactly because he already has a job, he already has work that pays him.
yeah,
He doesn't need to edit my video,
yeah,
But like it's more of like for a favor because like I'm asking
yeah.
him and we're friends.
What was the
So
reasoning for hiring someone to do it instead of like? Because I know you added a lot of your content as it is. What was kind of the motivation behind like
uh,
hiring someone to do that?
because I'm not as good as an editor as
Got it.
like just
Okay.
plain and simple. Anthony can like animate stuff. He can
Ah,
do motion graphics. He's very good with like he's also good with pacing and like he knows a lot of like those basics. I'm better at like I feel like the creative decisions and the pacing, but when it comes to motion graphics and like stuff
hmm.
like that, I haven't really touched too much of it. I know how to do basic stuff. Like I know how to use After Effects, but it's very basic. So
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I was gonna say too, something that I really admire about you is that you seem like you don't really care about like some of the negative stigma that comes along with like, especially the kind of content that you create. Because like to be honest, like when I first saw who you were and stuff, I had kind of a just based off like what I believe as a creator for myself and like what I want to push, and everyone's different. But until I really dove in and started learning more about you and like the kind of the content that you create and kind of where you come from, I almost thought that it was like, okay, like this is a little much. So like, okay, how the fuck does this guy like put this kind of content on the internet? But now that I've learned about you, like I really respect what you do. But regardless of that, like, and I think a lot of people might have that opinion about you, but regardless of that, you just don't really care, and you just keep creating and you keep doing what you love to do. What's kind of some of your thoughts on like the negative stigma that you might get with, you know, putting out some of the more rave centered content that you put out?
Yeah. So I think that first off, thank you. And thanks for giving me a chance. Cause I know we have like, actually Nate and I have had a couple people like come up to us. We had one recently come up to us and it was so funny. Or she came up to Nand. I think it was at like Skyline, and she told Nand, she was like, I am a huge fan of you guys now. She's like, but back when you guys like made the Seven Lions DJ fans video, I like shit on that. Like I left like a shit comment on that, you know? And it's so funny, like the transformation. I mean, to me, like there's always going to be people that don't like the content regardless. Because I think a lot of people, you know, like one of the things or one of the reasons, you know, I make the content too is because like, you know, it's authentic to my experience, right? Or that's really always kind of been the guiding light of like my experiences or of making content is it's always going to be based off of my own experiences. I would never make something that isn't based off of anything that's happened to me at some point in my life. Anyone that has anything bad to say about it, it's like, well, hey, I'm just making it based off of my experience. This is just what I did, you know? And so I think that's kind of one of the ways I offset like receiving any hate. Cause like, you know, there are a lot of people out there who, you know, there are some people who think like, you know, glorifying drugs is bad. And then there are some people who think it's so funny because on the podcast, Mickey was talking about how she goes to rave sober and how, you know, it gives her, and how it gives her anxiety when she like looks around and everyone's like messed up, you know, and she got like shit for that. And it's like, you can't win.
What the heck?
Know? Yeah. It's like, oh, we get shit on for glorifying drugs, but then we also get shit on for like being like, oh, we're sober and like, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So regardless, like someone's always going to have something to say about everything. So, I think one of the ways I just deal with that is like, I'm just going to keep making what I think is funny, is authentic to my experience. And that's just how it's going to be, you know, if it's relatable to people, then it is. And if it's not, it's not.
And that's the key for sure. I think no matter what, I mean, even, do you know like Roman Atwood? Like huge mega star YouTuber? Yeah, family YouTube channel. Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen his stuff.
Yeah, so he just started a podcast as well. So I'm new. Oh, nice. I'm a new fan of his. I know
you're on the podcast ride, man.
Dude, I am. Learning about his story and stuff, like he films his kids, he films his wife. It's just like his normal life for his vlogs, and then like his podcast stuff. He's only on like he's under 10 episodes still, but like he brings on like inspirational people. He talked to Steve-O and like about how like he became clean and sober, and it's like all like positivity always. But even he gets hate. It's like, why would you hate on something? What? I was like, regardless of what content you put out, you're going to get hate.
Honestly, if you get hate, I think that's a good thing.
You're doing good. Yep.
Yeah, that means that what you're doing is working.
Yep. And I mean, any publicity is good publicity, right? It's like
that's true too.
If people are talking about you, like you're doing something right.
That's true. Yeah.
Back to what we were just talking about with your story, though. What stereotypes have people kind of assumed about you, or like what judgments have people kind of cast on you?
Oh, well, first off, people think that I've like fried my brain because they think I do drugs all the time, which is not true at all. Yeah. It's literally, it couldn't be further from the truth. To be honest, I'm like very safe and very like choosy about like how often I do stuff. So, and like it's always been like that too. It's never been like to the point where I had a problem and then like it had to be fixed. Like I've always been pretty safe.
With the gym related stuff too is, I mean, you're very passionate about fitness. It's like to a certain degree, it's like you kind of want to protect that aspect of your life too.
Yeah, no, for sure. And also I just know like I've been fortunate enough to have like really good people in my life, and like especially around the time where I was even introduced to all that, which was like in college. Like I was very fortunate enough to have people who like cared, and one of the first people who, like, the very first time I like ever, you know, did we'll call it pre-workout, just my joke on the podcast. The first time I ever did that, he like literally gave me like a baggie with like all these vitamins and like instructions, and he was like, "You're gonna take this at this time, and you're gonna take this at this time. Blah blah blah. Make sure you don't do this. Make sure you don't do this." And like I remember before that point, when I was deciding if I wanted to try it or not, he was just like telling me of all the like fun times he had before, and he was just like, "My mantra is there is a responsible way to do everything irresponsible." And I was just like, that's always stuck with me, you know? And I'm like, that's pretty true, to be honest. And that's why like to the point of me making, you know, drug content, like I do have in my link tree, it's one of the top links actually, the Umbrella Project, which is like a site that they talk about like safe ways to do certain substances, because the thing is like people are going to do what they want to do. Like you can't control.
People are still doing it regardless.
Yeah, they're still going to do it regardless, whether I make a video on it or not. It's like people are going to still decide what they want to do for themselves. You know, it shouldn't be my job to like, you know, to tell them what to do, what not to do. Yeah. Like I said, I'm going to make content based off my own experiences. But I do want people to like still be educated.
And you even still make content about how to kind of do that safely and stuff like that too, which I kept back to my original point of like my original thought of like you guys as a whole, like the content that you guys create in your group, like once I like started seeing like more of like the Rave Safe type content that you've made too, I was like, okay, they're backing it up with like good actual stuff to like make sure people are safe, and you guys are just kind of almost making a mockery out of things that have either happened to you or that happens in the rave industry. So it's funny.
yeah, pretty much. It's like it's funny because like we almost like make fun of drugs in a way.
Yep.
Like the bad parts of drugs, which you would think would like discourage people, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that like at the end of the day, you know, it's like people will interpret it however they want. But it is funny to hear like some of the assumptions that we get, you know, from making the content that we do.
Yeah.
So
another thing that kind of popped in my head while we were talking about this too is like even like back to the fitness stuff. It's like I think like people like older guys too, especially like are on like TRT, and which is prescribed by their doctor. And while, you know, party favors aren't necessarily prescribed by a doctor, there is safe ways to go about taking recreational stuff. You know what I mean? Like there is safe ways, and as long as you're doing it safe, like I think that's really what matters. And I really appreciate like Insomniac and some of the other companies that are out there that like have like the like ground control and like Rave Safe and like all that kind of stuff. Like I think that's awesome that people are like, because they kind of have the same message too of like, you know, we know people are going to do know regardless.
Yeah.
Just like in
know it
bodybuilding,
exists.
like in bodybuilding, you can't even be competitive in bodybuilding unless you're pretty much on stuff at the top levels.
Yeah.
And it's like people are going to do it regardless. It just, I think it's important to have education on how to do it safely.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Yeah.
Has negative stigma or what people thought about you like feel like made you ever feel like unmotivated at all to continue on with creating what you do?
Oh,
like, have you ever like second guessed yourself of like, maybe I shouldn't do this?
Yeah, bunch of times. I would say there's been a lot of times where like I've made a video or I've had an idea for a video, and I will like run it. I'll definitely like run it by people first.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, is this too much? You know?
And it's good that you have other creators around you that can kind of are in the same space that can kind of guide you guys can kind of guide each other. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. But I will say that like, you know, my mindset is still like, you know, if something is like authentic to me, then like usually I will still post it. But I will say that like, you know, in the past, like historically, when I do get hate from people, first off, like nowadays I just kind of drown it out, but like, I would also like try to look at it in like a positive light. Like, okay, well, how can I like improve on this to make it better? To make like, if people were like, oh, this is cringe, like, okay, it's like, I'm still ignoring you, but like, I'm like, okay, what makes this cringe, right? Like, what could I do better that would like make this less cringe, you know?
Yeah.
So I think sometimes it can be productive, but yeah, it can be really discouraging at times too. I mean, like, you know, especially when you have like people ganging up on you, you know, like that's when like Noah said something like really funny to me back when we were making videos together, which was like a big reason he like really only responds. He like will only respond to comments in like the first couple hours of him posting something, and then he won't even look at them anymore. Is
Smart.
it takes about he's like it takes about like 100 positive comments to offset one negative comment
Holy
or
shit.
something like
True.
that.
Yeah.
Which is like it's so true though. It's like
Yeah.
negativity is like so much more impactful when you're a
yeah.
creator. So yeah, and like it's funny because like you know especially now that like the EDM creator space is growing, and like you know my friends you know Bryn and Nand and Mickey and all them like are growing, like they're starting to get hate too sometimes, and so like you know we kind of like help each other out like in terms of dealing with that because you know sometimes it's very easy to like want to respond, it's very easy to like want to like lash back out at people or whatever, but the problem is like when you do that like it's never going to get anywhere. People are like if people are going out of their way to comment something negative on their video, do you think they're willing to change their mind? Probably not, right?
Definitely
So
not.
yeah, I mean unless they're respectful about something and they express an actual legitimate concern, then like that's okay. But like yeah, if someone is like commenting on your video and like, oh this is so cringe, like are you gonna like even bother arguing with them? No. It's like
What's crazy
they already
is
made
like,
up their mind.
what's crazy is like, what happened to Plur, man? Like, shouldn't we all in
Dude,
this
I
community
know.
like have the idea of like that's what I try and do at least, and that's why my perspective of you guys have changed drastically, is because I continued, even though I saw some of the things that like maybe I didn't particularly like necessarily. Once I did some more digging and like figured out who you guys were, like I don't know, I had developing a different perspective. It was because I kept my mind open to like, okay, I'm a creator. Let me look at this from a different lens. Let me look at this as like from like a creator's lens and just appreciate what they're doing and what success you guys had. And that's where it was like, okay, like, that wouldn't have been possible if I wouldn't have had like kept an open mind throughout like that process. You know what I mean? So I think more people definitely need to keep an open mind.
I agree. Yeah, like toxic positivity is like really. I feel like it's very like relevant these days.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I think a lot of people, especially because like raving is kind of it's growing again, you know, because you know, COVID and like you know quarantine kind of like slowed it down. Exactly right. But now that it's growing again, you have a lot more people entering the space, and so a lot of these people enter the space and they're not familiar with the culture or what the culture used to stand for. So you have these people coming in who don't know about the culture and who are just who are just like spreading that, you know, and not even like really having any knowledge of Plur at all to begin with. And then I think
a big change in that was like the lack of like people wearing candy nowadays too. Like candy's not really never trade shit at shows anymore.
That is really true, honestly. Yeah, wear more candy, guys.
Yeah, right. Yeah, wear more candy. Spread the love.
Yeah, you know what's so funny about that too is that like I remember in like I think it was like 2016, 2017 when there was a point where candy wasn't allowed.
Yeah, what the hell? I remember.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I'm just like, what? You're not gonna let beaded bracelets in?
Yeah.
Like, makes no sense.
Going back to the feeling unmotivated, what do you do when you do feel that like? Because I mean, we all at times. I mean, even you know in the gym or for work, content creation, whatever it may be, we all feel unmotivated at times, and we all have those days where it's like we just want to like drink a beer and watch some Netflix. Like you know, I have a lot of those times. What do you do? What do you feel like what do you do when you feel unmotivated in your own life?
Well, I'll probably go hop on some Super Smash Bros. And play that for a while. But yeah, I would say, well, okay, I think I'm in a very like fortunate situation now where like the friends that I've made here since I moved to LA, which was 2 years ago now, the friends that I've made here so far, like I wouldn't trade them for the world, you know? And so honestly, they are extremely helpful. And it's really helpful too, because like we're not like, of course you have like, you know, me, Mickey, Nand, Bryn, who are all in the same niche, and like, you know, you have some a couple other people in the EDM creator space as well. But like we also have friends in other niches too, you know, like we have like our friend Larry, who's in the gym niche. My friend Saint is in the cologne niche. Like We have like friends Andy and Michelle.
That's
We're just
dope.
like husband wife like content, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really motivating because you know, they all have the same problems, you know, and we're all like creators who go through the same stuff. Like we all go through like pits where we're like unmotivated, pits where we don't really know like what kind of content we want to make, or like, you know, we don't know if like we want to switch genres, or like, you know, or like our
blocks.
content's not creative blocks. Our content's not doing as well. We're getting a lot more hate than usual. So but like it's funny because like even just surrounding yourself with those people makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's like sometimes when I do feel unmotivated, like I'll go and like watch one of Larry's videos and I'll be like, oh, that's really funny, like I kind of want to do something similar. Like half the time, like my friends inspire me to make videos like, you know, just like how they do, and or like even just to like explore a new concept, or think of something in a different way, right? And so yeah, no, for that I'm like really, really grateful. But I would say, to answer this question, before I had like a friend group like that, I think it really just all comes down to like your motivation and like your ability to, like your ability to like how much do you want it, you know?
Yeah.
And
staying
like,
disciplined. That's something that Dan taught me, was staying disciplined when you feel unmotivated. Like regardless of what happens, like this needs to happen. Even if I don't want to do it, I'm gonna force myself to do it. Yeah,
like there's a very small percentage of people who like really, like when they set a goal and they like a big goal, they like really stick to it the whole way through. You know, like you would be like surprised, right? And so like that's the thing, is it's like for years now I've been like this. I want this to be my career. I want this to like happen. And like, I'm not like, under no circumstances am I going to stop like until it happens that way. Right. I'm like a big law of assumption person too. So I love that shit. And like, I'm
law of attraction, all that stuff.
Super into manifestation.
You have to almost put your mindset into like imagining and living your everyday life as if it had already happened. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. You know, there you go.
Yep. That's how I live my life. So
that's good.
So a lot of my friends and stuff, it's like, even with the podcast or when I used to compete in bodybuilding or whatever, it's like there's so much crossover there for me, where it's just like, you know, when like I said, when motivation fails, the discipline, you have to stay disciplined. And you know, for me with bodybuilding, it's like I wanted to win a show. I finally did, but like that wouldn't have happened if I would have given up after my first show. Like it took me like 4 shows to actually get the first place. With the podcast, it's like, and I'm sure you'll run into this as well, it's like it's trying to get everyone on the right schedule and like making sure your content is planned far enough ahead to where you don't fall behind. And sometimes it does, you get pushed up against the wall, and it's like, okay, it's like those are the times where it's like, are you really going to push through this and make it happen regardless of, you know, I'm off on a day, or am I going to give up? Like there's been so many times where it's like I could just give up right now and have this stress-free life, but that's not what I want to do.
You got to have a winning mindset, honestly. Like it took me pretty much 3 years to break 10K on Instagram, you know? And like when I would see people break that shit in like a month or a couple of months or whatever. And it's like, you can't look at that and be like, well, I'm a failure, you know? And like, oh, well, this is like not going to work, or like,
it's not your time.
It's too much work, or like whatever. It's like, no, dude, like you literally just have, you have to stay disciplined. You have to keep pushing. Like it's really all like, how much do you actually want it? You know, do you just want it because it's like, oh, because like, you know, the convenience of it, or you just like the idea of it? Like you have to actually want it.
And learn how to like the process too. Like fall in love with the process of getting there. That's the funnest part, man. Like you get to reap it. Really, I know that we're all going to reap the benefits in 20 years from now. Of course we are. But like right now, like I'm enjoying the journey of getting there, because once we're there, it's like, look, I did that shit, you know?
Exactly.
Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. We're creeping up on an hour now, but I did want to talk about your podcast and some of your future plans that you have for yourself. What, other than your podcast, we'll talk about that in a second. Let's start here. Where do you see yourself? What do you want to accomplish in the next like 5 years?
So I think right now, probably the biggest goal is like expanding onto other social media platforms. So obviously I want to grow, you know, I keep growing Instagram and TikTok, but definitely YouTube is like a big one. And like I mentioned before, like I have a lot of really fun ideas for videos that I want to shoot for for YouTube, that I just think would really pop off. So that's kind of the main goal. The next like 5 years for me. I also want to start my own business. I have like this business idea.
Okay.
I'm not going to go too much into it, but
Yeah.
it's going to be like rave gym athleisure wear, maybe mixed with a little anime flair. We'll see.
Man,
But
I wish you the absolute best on that because I know how freaking hard the
it is
apparel game
hard.
is.
It is hard, but I mean, just seeing like companies like Young LA and how fast
Yeah.
like they've grown. I like
Shout out Giordani.
yeah, shout out Gary
And Gary,
you
yeah.
know, yeah, like I've just seen like I've kind of just like been taking notes on the side, you know, of like
Yeah.
okay, like what are they doing that's like doing really well, you know. So that's one of the goals I think too. That's more of I think like a 10-year goal.
Yeah.
But yeah. Other than that is to just grow the podcast. It's to get more connected with like, you know, our audience and you know, get more involved in the community as well.
Tell me a little bit about like so I know you've just started a podcast. You're on episode 3 coming up in a few days, right?
Yes.
On Sundays.
It'll come out, probably next weekend.
Okay, cool. What was kind of like the idea of starting that? Because I know it's a bunch of you guys within like your friend group.
Yeah, dude, that was like a 2 a.m. like talk. We were shooting content here in my apartment, like the 4 of us at 2 a.m.
Best ideas come out in the middle of the night.
Yeah, they were here at like 2 a.m. And what was happening was I kept seeing, I don't know if you've seen Suburb Talks. It's like like these six like 21-year-olds but they're super entertaining, super funny. And I kept seeing their stuff pop up on like TikTok, and I was just like, this is like a very digestible way to like make content. Like I feel like it's very and the thing about like that is like people are getting like a good view of like their personality, and like I don't know, it helps people invest in your personality rather than strictly your content. So I was talking to them about it, and I'm like, yeah, like what if we started a podcast? Like we totally could. No one, like there aren't like a ton of people doing it in the space.
Yeah.
And also like, you know, we have like an interesting dynamic. We're all already friends, so that's like we got that going for us. Yeah, like I think we all have some like interesting things to talk about. And so we were kind of just like, all right, like, well, let's do it. And then, 4 weeks later, here we are.
What I commend you guys on like starting it with a group of people, because when I started mine, that wasn't even a thought in my head. I was just like, it's just going to be a one-on-one, which is obviously the format that I still have. But I've always been like, now that I've gotten more into like the podcast, it's been a couple years since I started my show, and like I'm a huge podcast listener. I see a lot of like, especially the big, well, Joe Rogan, no, but most of the other big shows are all like, they all have like, they might have a guest, but then they also just have like, it's like just their group, like the Nelk Boys have just like, it's them, you know what I mean? Or like Impulsive, it's like their friend of their group of friends. I think the camaraderie and like how you guys like are able to just kind of more like have like a free, relaxed conversation between all of you. I think it is definitely a cool thing when you're trying to get people to like get to know who you guys each individually are. That's something I've struggled with my show. Like I try and talk about myself, but like my show's not really based around like me necessarily. It's like based around like my guests.
Your guests,
yeah. So I think it's like that's a super cool dynamic that you guys have, and it's awesome that you guys like started it as a group.
Thanks, man. Yeah. I think podcasts are really in right now too. So like,
they're like the biggest platform right now. What is like your guys' like long-term plan for that? Do you guys want guest songs? I know it's just been you guys so far in the first couple episodes. Are you guys, like, interview people or? Yeah,
I guess I could say it here first. Our next episode, we'll be having Larry come on.
Excellent.
So we'll be interviewing Larry. Also, Bryn and I are in talks with Gesture about coming on.
Sweet. I've met him at a couple shows. He's a cool guy.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. Yeah. I would like to bring Niall on. We've actually gotten requests for Niall, so we'll definitely have him on. And yeah, honestly, like a bunch more people. I think that's one of the really nice things too is because we have like kind of access to other creators in the community, or sorry, not in the community. In different communities, I think it makes for a more interesting dynamic as well.
Definitely.
So
yeah, because you can get like different perspectives than like people who are actually like,
active in
our community. Yeah.
Yep.
That's dope. Where can people get in touch with like if they want to send in like a request or whatever for a guest? How do they get in touch with you guys?
Honestly, just DM the I'm Thinking Pod Instagram, or I think you can submit a question on Anchor or Spotify. One of those. Nan is kind of in charge of that right now, so I don't really know. But yeah, you can definitely submit a question over there.
Sweet, awesome. Before we get out of here, we'll ask a couple last wrap up questions. What advice would you give someone who might want to grow a following or become an EDM influencer?
I would say just stay consistent, build good habits, and don't like. You really just have to like keep your head down and just keep pushing. Always try to improve on your content and like take feedback. I think it's important to take feedback, but never take anything too personally. Never take hate or whatever to heart.
And vice versa. Pushing. Don't ever take like the kind stuff too seriously either.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Stay humble.
Yep. Where can the listeners find you, and how can they support you specifically?
You can find me at Devin Larscheid on pretty much everything. Awesome. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I have a Twitter that I never post on, but if you want to follow me,
what is it with like us creators? I don't know. I don't like Twitter either.
I hate Twitter, man. Twitter is a cesspool. It is a cesspool of toxicity.
Yeah, for real. And it's not a very creative platform. It's just words. So
yeah, it's not.
Kind of hard to. Sweet. Thank you so much for your time today, man.
Yeah, thank you, Justin.